Hey, what's up everyone? This is your friend and host PCJ, the Pop Culture Junkie, here for a brand new episode of What's PCJ Watching? Thank you so much for tuning in, checking it out. Hope you've been enjoying the previous episodes, and hopefully you will leave me some comments, give me some feedback, let me know thoughts and opinions on today's picks that I share with you. So what we do, if you're a first-time viewer, first-time listener, what we do on here is I share with you my picks on what I'm watching this week. We live in a world full of streaming services, so it doesn't matter if you have 2 or 3 VHS or DVDs, you have an entire library available to you via different streaming services. And I have picked a movie from each one that I'm going to share with you this week on this episode. Maybe you want to check them out as well. Maybe this is something you haven't seen in a long time or you never heard of and now you're going to check it out. So here go my picks. So my first pick is on Hulu, and the movie I'm going with is Colossal. Now, Colossal is a 2016 science fiction, dark comedy, black comedy as some would call it, starring Anne Hathaway, Jason Sudeikis. They are two children. They know each other when they're kids, and they go off and live their lives, and then they find each other later on. Anne Hathaway's kind of had her ups and downs. She's kind of trying to find herself now. She's come back to the town that she grew up in, and she discovers when she arrives in town, all of a sudden, these strange monsters show up and begin attacking other parts of the world. It's almost like a Godzilla, King Kong type monster, and the world, feels like, oh my gosh, the world's ending. But they can't explain where these monsters are coming from. And these are like giant, Godzilla-sized monsters. I thought it was a brilliant story. It was original. If it wasn't original, I haven't seen anything close to it. So I definitely recommend it. I won't spoil anything, but you definitely want to check it out. So going over to Netflix, one movie in particular stood out for me, and that is The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson, Chris Cooper, Heath Ledger, and a cast of other cameos from people that were already stars to begin with, or you're going to watch the movie and be like, oh my gosh, this guy went on to do this and this and this, or she was in this. There's just so many cameos and so many great actors in this movie. The movie takes place during the Revolutionary War. U.S. is just still starting to become a country. You have George Washington leading troops. He's not president yet. You have redcoats storming all over different parts of the East Coast, and we're battling King George. Mel Gibson is a father of several children, and his eldest son, played by Heath Ledger, wants to join the Revolutionary War. He goes off to war, and through a roundabout way, comes back home because he's injured, and his father, of course, was never approving of him going into battle because he was against it, even though he himself has a very checkered past when it comes to the military, and you learn about all that for throughout the movie. I just think the visual look of this movie is amazing. I believe it's Roland Emmerich who directed it, and the style, the costumes, the scenes, everything is just really awesome. It's a great, just visual, entertaining movie. And then you have Mel Gibson before he went insane, and I love Mel Gibson no matter what. He's one of my favorite actors. But I think the movie is underrated in a lot of ways. It is a long movie. It's about 2.5 hours. It is a war drama, so you have a lot to tell. So it does need a lot of time to tell it. And the battle scenes are amazing. And again, it just feels very authentic to me. And I think it's a great watch to check out again. I remember going to see this in theaters not once, but 3 times. Okay, over on Disney Plus, I wanted to go back in time and check out a classic movie that I watched as a kid growing up. And this movie came out way before I was born even, but I watched it on VHS. We rented it from the video store several times, and I remember watching it over and over. And it's not that older than me. It's only a few years older, but this movie is called Pete's Dragon. Many of you youngins are going to be like, oh, they made Pete's Dragon just a few years ago. No, they didn't. That was a horrible remake and nothing to do with the original. Pete's Dragon, the original Pete's Dragon Disney film, that came out in 1977 it came out, and it is a musical, so some people aren't biggest fans of musicals, but I enjoy musicals. But it's a fantasy comedy musical. It has a imaginary dragon called Elliot, and he befriends an orphan child named Pete, who is adopted by this horrible family, and he doesn't get fed, he doesn't get any love. He runs away because he's, living in a miserable life. And he and Pete come upon this town called Passamaquoddy that nobody can pronounce it sometimes. And they try to hide off with a lighthouse watcher with her, the lady and her father who live in the lighthouse. But then you have Pete trying to get some kind of a real life, and he finds, people that actually care about him. The songs are fun and entertaining. The animation is great. It's a live action film, but the dragon Elliot is animated. So this is pre Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and a lot of like the penguins in Mary Poppins. That's a good way to compare it. So you have animation and live action crossing over. The movie is fun, entertaining, and the music is fun. My favorite character in the movie is Dr. Timorous. Dr. Timorous, and he is a crackpot, shyster and seller. He goes around to town selling bottles of fake medicine to try to just basically con people out of all their money for fake cures and ails and whatnot. But he is interested in buying Elliot from Pete because he wants to kill Elliot, dissect him, and use parts of the dragon for different medicines and ails and other things. But I love it. I enjoy it so much. I watched it again and again as a child, and I still say it holds up. So check it out on Disney+. Okay, last but not least, headed over to Amazon Prime. I just saw this posted a couple days ago, so it should still be available on there. Cable Guy, starring Jim Carrey, directed by Ben Stiller. It's also starring Matthew Broderick, Jack Black, Leslie Mann. You have a lot of cameos like Andy Dick and such. This movie is so funny and so dark at the same time. I absolutely love it. It's a different take for Jim Carrey. This is fresh off of doing Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura. I think, he had already been the Riddler in Batman Forever. And you would think, okay, it's a Jim Carrey comedy, but no, it's dark. It has lots of elements of dark comedy, but you don't know if you want to feel bad or sad for the Cable Guy character that Jim Carrey plays. Okay, it's about Matthew Broderick and Leslie Mann, their characters. They break up at the beginning of the movie, and he's moving into an apartment so they can take some time apart from each other while they figure out their relationship. And he wants to get his cable set up. Jim Carrey is the cable guy. He shows up, very Jim Carrey-ish, over the top, exaggerated, of course. And you start to see that he wants to be friends with anybody that will be friends with him. And he wants Matthew Broderick to join him to go check out the satellite where the cable signals come in, and they begin to bond over that. And he just becomes a friend, really close friend, and then over the top friend. And it almost becomes like a like a Cape Fear or something feeling, where the guy is like, I can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And he soon realizes, or Matthew Broderick's character realizes, okay, this guy is goofy, psycho, something's not right with him. And he ends up wishing he hadn't become friends with him to begin with. So I love the movie, though. Jim Carrey, I think this is one of his most underrated films. A lot of people remember, of course, Dumb and Dumber and Ace Ventura, even Me, Myself, and Irene and such, but I think this is something that gets forgotten, and I would recommend you check it out if you haven't seen it before. Definitely give it a try. And on top of that, the soundtrack to this movie is amazing. I bought the soundtrack when it came out. All right, everyone, well, those are my picks for this week's episode of What's PCJ Watching? Let me know in the comments if you happen to check out any of the films I shared with you and what you thought. Maybe you've already seen these. Share with me your thoughts on what you thought of the films, and get back with me. I appreciate all the feedback. Everyone have a great, safe weekend and great week, and I'll see you next time. This is PCJ, the Pop Culture Junkie. Enjoy your movies. Sign it out.